Hello, everyone, and welcome to the network Blizzconline recap show. BlizzCon has finally come to a close after this weekend's festivities, and definitely a lot of changes on that front. So tonight, the plan is we are going to break down all of the news that we got on the Overwatch front, which is, primarily revolving around Overwatch 2, as well as a couple of the announcements that we got today in regards to the Overwatch League. So joining me tonight are a couple of familiar faces and voices that you may have heard over the years on the Overwatch League network. We're a couple of people short, but it's fine. Three's company anyway. So joining me tonight, as you can see, we have Edinar from Heroes Never Die, and of course, every once in a blue moon, if it's been a while since we've heard from Spider. But if you go to his Twitter account, you can see just how long it's been since he's been around because there was some stuff piling up on your Go XLR by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've done any kind of streaming or podcasting. Having a newborn will absolutely do that when you already have two kids. I mean, I always go back to like the Jim Gaffigan joke where he's talking about four kids, but three kids is almost the same. He's like, imagine you're in a lake and you're drowning, and then someone hits a baby. That's basically what it's been like for the last couple months. So, lack of sleep. Luckily, the new baby has been a little easier on us at night, but not as easy on us during the day.
Hmm.
So he comes with his own challenges, but we love him more than the other ones. No, I'm just kidding. But it is good to be back. I mean, we didn't quite get the news I think a lot of us were hoping for, but we still have a lot to talk about. So I'm happy to share my opinions on it and run through it. And I wanted to dip my toe back in the pool, as they say.
Mhm. Well, it's funny because, you mentioned, just the news that we did get. And, Edinar, you and I had both kind of like talked a lot about kind of like the financial report and what was put in there, where it kind of basically outright said, hey, this stuff is still
Mhm.
a very long way down the pipeline, so we're not really expecting it to hit at any point this year. And that kind of I don't want to say softened the blow going into BlizzCon lying, but I feel like for a lot of people that kind of reeled in expectations in regards to what we should have expected for the announcements for BlizzCon line this year.
Yeah, no, it 100% did that. Like I came into this knowing, hey, don't expect to get Overwatch 2 release date information and stuff like that. Now, they gave us it with the panel, they gave us a decent amount of information. It's probably not the information people wanted. Outside of like release dates and stuff like that. They gave us more of a technical aspect, like, hey, this is what we're going to be doing with like the graphics and stuff like that. And what people really want is show me new heroes, show me new features type of thing. So overall, like going in, I did not expect much as
Mhm.
far as Overwatch 2 announcements, and I was actually pleasantly surprised on how much we actually learned from this.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat too because, knowing that, all right, we're probably going to look at a 2022 release date. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll still get hero news, but then they kind of did a 180 on that front as well, which of course we'll get into. But I will say with the information that we got, we now have a better understanding in regards to the scope and scaling of Overwatch 2. There's a lot more game fleshed out than what we were initially anticipating, going based off of the information that we had on hand when the game was first announced back at BlizzCon 2019. And we'll get into that here in just a bit. So we actually have quite a bit of information to get through. But we first have to start with the bad aspect of it. We had a group of us hanging out over in Discord in the voice chat during the opening ceremony. And it was pretty quiet. Like, I'll be honest. Like, all of us were just kind of like, okay, like there's like 10 minutes left. When's the Overwatch stuff going to hit? And me being the me being the optimist, I was like, oh, they have to be saving it for the end then. And then, they're like wrapping it up, and then I'm just like, well, fuck. Like, what the hell is going on? That was
Yeah,
definitely rough.
it was super disappointing. I mean, I was in there with Discord, and you could tell everybody like over the course of time, you're like, okay, here's Hearthstone. All right, here's the WoW cinematic. Okay, here's Diablo Immortal. All right, we've got to be getting to Overwatch, and then we were like, well, there's only a little bit of time left. And then J. Allen Brack came back on, and you could hear like in the Discord, people were just like, wait,
What?
what? Yeah, it was. I know they said they didn't have a lot to talk about, but they could have put anything in there. They could have literally gone like a minute and a half and said like, "I know you guys are really looking forward to Overwatch 2 news. Stay tuned for Jeff Kaplan and his team. He'll give you more on the panel, but we've got a lot of exciting stuff for you." Like even that would have been better than nothing.
Hmm.
It was.
Exactly. It was just like, okay, I didn't expect much, but to get the Heroes of the Storm treatment of being like relegated to nothing was hella disappointing.
Hmm.
Like
We in maintenance mode now, boys.
yeah, it's just like this was worse than what I imagined it would be.
It's like the lights are off and nobody is home. it felt
Mm-hmm.
it felt really bad. And like in regards to like general announcements, if this was a traditional BlizzCon, I think a lot of people would have been very agitated based off of the amount of classic or nostalgia trips that were the focal point of a lot of BlizzConline this year. And of course, we did have news for the next WoW patch, the next, WoW raid, Hearthstone expansion, Diablo, a little bit of Diablo 4 news, and a new class and everything, but just not quite the scope that we are used to seeing from a BlizzCon.
Sooner or later, they need to not rely on being like, hey, let's just bring back some of our old shit.
Hmm.
No, I think they should go the other way. Like I honestly expected the Overwatch announcement during the opening ceremony to be like, we have Overwatch Classic mode launching now. You can play Overwatch right like how it was in open
No, and
beta with
it's
Bastion with his shield and stuff like that. No hero limits and stuff like that's what I expected based off of the previous course of the opening ceremony. Instead, we got nothing. So I don't know. Maybe I would have preferred that.
I,
fair
I
enough.
don't know anyone that wants to see the shield back, but
Yeah, no, I don't want the shield back. I remember that. That was freaking horrible.
You know, somebody once said, "You may think you want it, but you don't." And look how that worked out for. Oh wait, right? He was
Mhm.
completely wrong. Never mind.
Yeah,
But I have a cell phone.
yeah.
Who doesn't?
But I mean, you still don't know when you'll be able to play Immortal on that cell phone, so there is also that too. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about Overwatch 2. So, it was like what, like 45 minutes for the Overwatch 2 behind the scenes panel. And there was a lot of information packed into this. And they started talking first about some of the new maps that they were put in place, and they kind of you know let the dev team just pick whatever. And the two that we saw that were brand new were Rome and New York City.
I mean, they totally picked that at random and it wasn't
Oh yeah,
predisposition.
totally not, because it's not like anything of this was pre-recorded or anything. But Rome, as you would expect, featured famous locations. We got to see the Colosseum. Uh, my big question was whether or not we would actually be able to fight inside the Colosseum, and that remains to be seen.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be horse shit if you're not allowed to fight inside the
it's
Coliseum.
like, hey, it's just like background noise, and that's about it. But they talked about how they sent one of their artists out there on a trip, and he came
I
back with
want to do. I want
thousands
to
of
be that guy.
pictures. Yeah, yeah. Here,
Like,
just spend
hey,
a week in Rome, take a ton of pictures, get back to us, and we'll have a good basis to use, and we'll be able to,
yeah, yeah,
Blizzardize it essentially.
yeah.
It'd
Be
be
like, oh,
funny if
expense paid trip to Rome. Okay,
Hmm.
it'd be
twist
funny
my
if
arm.
he like went out there on his own and then took a whole bunch of pictures and brought them back and been like, "Wait, can I write this off for work if I turn it into a map?" Like maybe there wasn't like a Blizzard forethought. Like maybe this guy was like, "That trip was really expensive, way more than I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
Maybe
They're just like, yeah, thanks for doing this. We're not gonna reimburse you. Sorry about that, bud.
a
Hmm.
pandemic and reasons and
Right.
Yeah.
record profits, but not for you."
Yeah,
Yeah.
sad face for you.
Only for the Activision overlords. But we do know, like, they spent a lot of time highlighting the architecture of Rome, which was really cool. And then we got to see New York City as a second map, and they were showing off like key features like the Grand Central Station. We got to see a little bit of Broadway, and unfortunately, like, we don't really have a clear indicator in regards to what map type either of these are. But we do know, like, they're not going to be assault maps. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But as a nerd, when I saw New York City, I was like, okay, if we don't get a nod to the Ninja Turtles, or if there's no Pizza Rat anywhere in NYC, I'm gonna feel like they dropped the ball from the get-go on that map specifically. But it was really nice to see NYC being represented, just because it has been such a like huge travel hub.
Mhm.
I'm excited for both of these maps. I mean, Rome looked amazing. Just
Rome
the
looked
stuff that
great.
the stuff that they did, like how they rebuilt the statues with holograms, and kind of gave you the sense of scale. But New York blew me away. Like the fact that they were able to get such a, I guess, claustrophobic type map to look that good. Like if you look at Kings Row. Um, Feels small when you're in the corridors. But if you look around, it doesn't really look that special. Like, you get a little griminess, whereas the pictures they showed off for New York look amazing. Like there's a lot of little varied locales and stuff in it. It's not like it's not that King's Row one color all the way through till you hit the Foundry, and then it's a slightly different shade. It's like they really felt, to me, it really felt like New York was like vibrant, and that's I'm excited for that. But like you said, we don't know what kind of map types they are. I would
I can
imagine,
tell you what they're not gonna be.
yeah, like he said, they're not going to be assault maps, but
Or
I
2 CP.
well, that's assault.
True.
But I think the way they highlighted New York, they specifically called out 3 points. So
Hmm.
that to me sounds like an escort map.
Right.
When they're like, we have three distinct locales. Now Rome, who knows? Like, maybe it's a hybrid, because maybe you'll fight into the Colosseum, take the Colosseum, and then you know have to push something out of there. Like who
Yeah.
knows? But
Well,
the maps were good.
you're also forgetting that we have a new map coming in push.
Right, that's
And
Right.
true.
they're gonna need to bring in 4 maps just for that game mode.
They were oddly quiet about that game type this time.
Like,
Like,
I don't remember them actually saying it.
yeah, that it doesn't worry me, but that concerns me to the point that maybe they didn't like how it was turning out.
Well, I
Because
think
they
I
oh, go
think
ahead.
the major point this year was to showcase the reason why people are buying Overwatch 2, because the focal point of the game is the PvE content. So they basically fixated on that. Because really the only time they mentioned push, like even secondhand, was when they were talking about Assault being replaced by a new game mode. Which in this
Yeah.
case is going to be push.
That's true. Yeah, so I'm curious to see how they turn out. Like both the maps. I mean, when you look at Overwatch, nobody looks at the maps and say these maps look like garbage. Like these maps are horrible to look at. You may have gameplay reasons why you hate a map. We all do.
Paris.
So Right, exactly. So we don't want like a Paris 2.0, but nobody looks at Paris and says, "Oh, Paris is
Oh,
an
that's an
ugly map."
ugly map.
So from a visual standpoint, what they showed off wasn't ever gonna like worry me.
Mhm.
They're all of their maps have their charms and they're pretty to look at, and they've only gotten better over the years. Like look at Anubis versus Oasis. Like it's night and day. And Oasis was one of the earlier maps that they added on. So the art team for Overwatch always knocks it out of the park. Like it's not the art team that people have problems with. It's unless somebody's in a provocative pose, but uh, it's the
Buttgate.
gameplay team.
Oh, Buttgate.
But anyways, we also learned about a new feature that is coming, and this is more from like a character design perspective, and that's with role passives being added. Now, they gave a couple of like character changes specifically to Reinhardt that they highlighted, and of course, our deaf and savior Papa Jeffrey Kep praise him.
Praise him.
Basically said outright like, all of this stuff might not make it to live in Overwatch 2, but they still highlighted it anyways. So in the testing, as of right now, Reinhardt has a second charge to his Fire Strike ability. And not only that, but they also gave Reinhardt the ability to cancel his charge attack. So that just gives it more control overall. And you can only imagine the amount of aggression that you could have with that additional fire strike. So that was one part of it. And then they were going into these passives where they're like, all right, well, the tanks are going to be dealing with, less knockback effects overall. The DPS that are attacking the tanks are going to be generating less ultimate charge when they're shooting at the tanks. They also mentioned, I believe for healers, it was like they would have like passive regen healing, similar to what you would see with like Valkyrie and things like that. And I can't remember if they mentioned anything for DPS. If it was like
Movement speed.
it was movement speed.
DPS
Oh.
moves
Okay,
faster.
which I'm more worried about that one than the others when it comes to closing the distance, especially when you factor in heroes that are already very mobile or heroes that have like roll abilities. Obviously, like the flankers and McCree, I don't know exactly how that is going to fit or like what the percentage is going to be because with the passives, it was basically, all right, well, here's the idea, but we didn't really get to see much of that in action, unlike the Reinhardt changes that, we were seeing being introduced here. So I have to say, Spider, like looking at the Reinhardt changes, when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, like you can really open up and play hyper aggressive. So they're kind
Mhm.
of shying away from like the shield heavy tanks and going more into like that brawling type character
Mhm.
route, kind of like what we saw at one point with Diva when she was just constantly in your face.
Yeah, I really specifically to the Reinhardt changes. I actually think those are really good changes because I think that speaks to Reinhardt as a character, and they said that in the video. Like you want to have that fantasy of this big guy in this armor. You don't want to just hold the shield up despite what your silver teammates might tell you to do. Um, as far as like changes, they seem to be really aggressive, and I think that's the role that they need to do. Um, they're I wish they would have expanded on more than Reinhardt. Like they
Mhm.
really went into him. Like they could have gone like, oh, we're giving May the ice skating ability and stuff like that, but we're scaling back this. This is I wish they would have done a little more into that. But the fantasy of Reinhardt, like how aggressive you can play with the charge and stuff that anybody who's ever played Reinhardt and liked Reinhardt was salivating over that because that you're just like, oh man. And even in the clips they showed like the little things you could do with it. Like he charges a brig, stops immediately, and then earth shatters. Like that's just the stuff you can set up. Um, with that is gonna, from an Overwatch League standpoint, that's just gonna set up outplay potential and stuff like that. So right now it's two Reinhardts have to collide with each other and stuff. There's a whole lot of gameplay nuances in there. Whereas this is just gonna raise that skill ceiling even higher. Now, as far as like the passives go, um, I think they're a good idea. Like I think role passives are a good idea. The ones they listed, maybe I was lukewarm on the movement speed. Like movement speed to me doesn't really make a huge difference. Characters that need movement have the abilities to do it. McCree running slightly faster than Zarya at the end of the day isn't going to make a big difference, because McCree shouldn't be in front of Zarya most of the time. Stuff like that didn't matter to me. The support passive I thought was a good idea. It just struck me as a little odd. Like, what are you going to do for characters like Mercy and Reinhardt who already have these passives?
Mhm.
Are you going to just have them keep them and just be like better versions of the passives? Or are you going to be, giving them new passives? That kind of stuff. But I think role passives are a good idea because anybody who's played tank in the last year can say that they're tired of being knocked back. So rather than nerfing individual characters like they just did with Hammond, uh, I think the passives are a better way to go. Like I think tanks should be able to stand their ground. Rather than nerfing Mercy's passive, because that's been a point of contention over the years. I think having a group wide passive that's easier to raise and lower is better, and then you can tune the individual characters in different ways. So I liked the idea as a whole, even though the specific ones they gave us I was kind of lukewarm on.
I love I love the idea of the Reinhardt being able to charge and stop whenever. But that's just me. I like how they're doing some more drastic changes. Um, and Papa Jeffrey did an interview with what was it, IGN,
Yes.
Hmm.
where he went on like he was just like a lot of this stuff we're just not introducing into Overwatch 1. We're going to wait cuz it just doesn't fit into uh, Overwatch 1 because it's based around all the other changes that they're going to be doing. So
Mhm.
that makes sense to me. Um I'm sure we'll get some stuff, but you know, are you gonna see Reinhardt with two strikes and being able to stop his charge mid charge? No, not before Overwatch 2 comes out. That's just not something that will happen. Um so I'm interested to see this because I like this is a way for them to just start doing more drastic things.
Mhm. Yeah, and what I really like about the Reinhardt stuff is, and like this is a tank like I've been trying to pick up more. I like the mind game aspects of shield management versus want to be aggressive and like what opportunities you should be looking for in order to open up and drop in Earth Shatter. So to add additional like elements on top of that and just add more things that I need to be thinking about as a player to look out for, not just for myself but also to fight against. Like that just fascinates me. So I really hope that version of Reinhardt will ship as is going into Overwatch 2 because I want to see the complexities of the Rhine games moving forward. And like if they're gonna be that aggressive, I want to see like what they would do with Orisa, who has been a very paint by the numbers and boring character to play for a very long time. So like I want to see what other changes they're actually eyeing at this point because the Reinhardt stuff looks awesome,
Yeah.
but that might be the better iterations or one of the better outcomes that we could
Hmm.
see. But I understand why they went with him specifically for the example that they gave. But we're still pretty bare bones on this front, and hopefully when they do give that next update, because also in an IGN interview that Kaplan gave, he mentioned that they're going to be more communicative, uh, have more communication moving forward, and they were expecting another update to hit probably around April. So it might only be a
When
couple of
the
months.
when Overwatch League starts up.
Yes, that would make sense.
That
That
would
would
be
be
good.
mid-April.
I, I
So
think
hmm?
I think to your Arissa idea, I think they should really like play into the characters more. Like maybe give Arissa like a speed boost because she's got four legs. Like she should be able to run faster
Yeah, more
on
horsepower.
right,
She's
exactly.
a horse.
Exactly. So, stuff like that, like Zenyatta floats. So, give him a little bit of verticality control. So,
Mhm.
he can, you know, teabag from a higher level, kind of thing. So I think they could really play around with this stuff. And I agree that probably putting most of it in Overwatch 1 isn't a good idea. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the changes, like they'll start throwing changes on the experimental card to see how they do like in a vacuum, and
Mhm.
then be like, okay, well, it really doesn't work in Overwatch 1. Whereas, like maybe they give Ryan 2 fire strikes right now, but not the charge control because maybe they need some new tech for that. Um, and people are like, oh yeah, this still works right now, and then they just push it live, and then when it continues on to Overwatch 2, people are already used to it. So i
Mhm.
i would expect that over the coming months. But yeah, as in terms of like all the abilities, I think they can have a lot of fun, because I
Mhm.
think they're on the right track. I think Kaplan in that interview said it best. He's like, we're doing stuff that we can't get away with right now. Like, this is a big reset for us, so we're going to do some crazy stuff that we can't get away with in Overwatch 1.
Right on. So can't wait to see what new abilities. Maybe they'll give Orisa like War Stomp or like a back kick. Who knows? Who knows what the future is gonna hold for Overwatch? But we're gonna have to wait until Overwatch 2 on that front. Let's talk about some of the combat upgrades that they were talking about, specifically when it came to the combat field group that has been working on the game. So they went into a lot of sound design aspects, especially when it comes to the trigger sounds of the game. They're looking for that more visceral weapon feel in Overwatch 2. And, they were basically like, look, like we're revisiting everything with the gunshots, and we're talking about the quick melee effects. So they're doing a new sound pass in this major overhaul. So, I know some of the examples that they were given during the panel were they want you to feel the ammo running low with your clip. So you're going to see more like sound amplification on that end. They want weapons to also feel like they're actually in the environment that they're in. So they were doing a lot of weapon shots in these different environments to help accentuate, uh, that feeling. So they had like versions of like outdoor, urban outdoor, warehouse, tight tunnels, like small corridors and all of these things. So you're going to have different bullet sounds throughout the game, depending on where you're firing from, what the environment is around you, and things like that. So, I I thought the verbiage of visceral was definitely something that I took out because we obviously as esports fans, one of our questions on the competitive front has just kind of been like, well, is there ever a situation where an FPS title can be played in the Olympics? And, the whole gun argument is always brought into discussion. So when I hear them talking about, visceral effects when it comes to the weaponry, that makes me shy away and just have to table that discussion of being like, well, we tried. And we just move on.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Ed. You can take this one first.
I mean, I was just gonna say is like as far as all this, the combat upgrades, I think it's great for the game.
Mhm.
It is. It's like me and Totem can attest to this. Is some of the stuff that they added to the game, like visually and sound wise, we were able to test out, and they were all amazing. Like that was probably, I think, universally the best thing that we tested out at BlizzCon last year with Overwatch 2 was how well this played out.
Mhm.
And they've obviously kind of, you know, grown towards that almost. Like kind of the, hey, we're just like, yeah, we're going to be adding PvE stuff, but we're going to be overhauling everything. And you did see a little bit of that with McCree. Um but I will flat out tell you you don't know what it actually is like until you actually play it. Like, I can attest, it just like, I think in our chat when we were watching everything, I was like, oh yeah, here comes the the visual graphics, and it just didn't play out the same way.
Mhm.
And you know we it's hard to explain.
Yeah,
It really is, but like, they have such good graphics now, it's insane.
yeah, that's the thing too that people need to remember. Like there is an engine upgrade. Like it's a complete overhaul. This is something that's going to be baseline, regardless of whether or not you pick up Overwatch 2. Um,
Yeah.
so you're everyone's going to be
Mhm.
getting it basically. And something that they didn't really touch up on a whole lot, which was something that we had also felt during our demo testing back at BlizzCon 2019. It's just more of like a visual indicator in regards to like when you're taking damage and where it's coming from. So it's a lot more clear cut on that front. So you're getting more information to the player. And it's not to say like the sound design within Overwatch as it currently is bad by any stretch of the imagination, because that's definitely not the case at all. It's actually one of the better sounding games to me
Yes, it is.
across like FPS
By
titles.
far.
So to see them basically working from the ground up again, to see like this level of an overhaul, it's a huge undertaking, and I can't wait to just go into different map types and just see the sound differential, and see like how much more information we're going to be able to gather when it comes to scouting, or just having better map presence when it comes to the opposition moving forward in Overwatch 2.
Yeah, I mean, sound is that the one of the things people really underestimate how big of a deal it is in a game. Like after you play a game for so long, and I mean, we've been playing Overwatch for over 4 years at this point. We take a lot of the sound design for granted, and like you said, the fact that they're rebuilding it from the ground up is a testament to how much work they're really putting into this. Um, Coming from more recent games like Apex Legends and stuff like that, they still struggle with sound design in ways that Overwatch never really did. So it is really important that they nail the gun sounds, and going that extra mile and adding like outdoor, indoor, warehouse, tight tunnel really makes a difference in how the game feels on like a day to day level. And with that, they mentioned, like you said, that they're adding like the more visceral kick to it. Like you definitely feel like you're firing soldiers rifle, and it's different than firing Orissa's fusion driver. And I think that's a big deal. Like you can actually see that in the game right now, how far they've come since original Overwatch. Like basically load into the training room and close your eyes and fire a soldier's gun,
Mhm.
then switch to Hammond, close your eyes and fire his weapons. You can tell the difference just by the amount of work that they put in between those two, and the fact that they're going to go through and do like a big sweep is huge. Like I think that's going to make the game look look better on the screen, but it's going to feel better to play. And they mentioned like quick melee as well. They're retouching that in terms of how that feels. And they showed like soldier like hitting Orisa in the face, and I don't think that properly conveyed how it's really going to feel. Like you guys said, you kind of have to play it to feel that. And they talked that point up, but I went back and rewatched that clip like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, okay, like I see a little bit of a difference, but it kind of looks the same to me. So I reserve judgment on that, but to me that just says that these changes are going to be a lot bigger than most people think they are,
Mhm.
and I think
Mhm.
that's a good thing. As in terms of combat upgrades, I think that's what they need to do. Like, obviously, we're buying a PVE game for Overwatch 2. Like that is what they're selling us. They're selling us an upgrade to the PvP experience, but we are buying a PVE game.
Yep.
So I think the fact that they're going this extra mile is going to help them justify this upgrade, and that's basically what Jeff Kaplan talks about this whole time. Like if you read that IGN interview, like he's straight up like I don't think we really conveyed what we wanted to. Like, we were very upfront, like, this is a big upgrade. And people are like, yeah, but it's just more maps and more heroes and then PvE. He's like, no, this is a big upgrade. And I think this kind of stuff really helps that.
Well, I think to an extent too, like even going back to that initial reveal, we had a really hard time comprehending exactly what Overwatch 2 was. In regards to, is this a standalone? Is this an expansion? Is it, you want to call it DLC? Like, what is this game exactly? And I feel like we have a much clearer image in our heads of what this game is meant to be at this point,
By
knowing the
far.
information that
Yeah.
we have now. So also, during this behind the scenes bit, they brushed up about a certain game mode within our game type in Overwatch, that being Assault, aka 2CP, and Kaplan has outright confirmed that it will be retired from competitive play in Overwatch 2.
Huzz-
So
Yay!
basically, the new push PvP mode, which they didn't really feature all that really at all at this BlizzCon, is going to be the replacement for Assault. But Kaplan did note, like, Assault will still be in the game, but it will be more to, like, custom games and also in arcade, but not in the competitive rotation, which, it makes sense, right? Like, we've had Paris and Horizon Lunar Colony yanked from the competitive, map pool since, like, April. It's been a long effing time. So since then, like, we've only had 3 assault maps available in the pool. You've had Hanamura, Temple of Anubis, as well as Volskaya Industries. And, like, it's always funny bringing up 2CP because it kind of brings that same sort of reaction from everyone within the community. The people that like 2CP are by far the minority. That's not to say that we don't enjoy some of the maps, but when you compare that map type to the others, anyone would rather play it in the other ones at this point. So I feel like this is all kind of
Yep.
just a sigh of relief. Because, like, when we played Push, and granted, spawn camping Ramses definitely heightened the experience and the enjoyment for us.
That was so
But
fun.
the
Even
push,
2CP is fun when you do that.
that is true. But just the push mechanic overall, having that sort of like tug of war style, was really something that the community had been wanting for quite some time, and it felt like a pretty good replacement. So it's good to finally be able to sit down and say for sure we don't have to worry about assault maps.
Yeah.
hmm Okay, so here's my thing. Nobody's going to cry over 2CP being gone.
No.
I don't have any objection to that. I don't have, anything other than to say, yay. But here's what I hope they do. I hope they repurpose the existing 2CP maps to hybrid or escort maps.
Okay.
They did mention, we'll talk about this later in workshops, but they did mention they started adding on sections to maps. Because if you think about 2CP, as much as people hate the game mode, they are definitely some of the most iconic like Overwatch maps. Like when you say name an Overwatch map, most people will name Kings Row, and then you're like name a second Overwatch map. It's going to be Temple of Anubis or Hanamura. Like that's just what people know in Overwatch. So I hope they repurpose the maps to other game modes. But as far as them just ditching 2CP in competitive,
Mhm.
no, nobody's going to be upset about that. I mean, there were so many like things on Twitter. Like as soon as it was confirmed that that was officially gone, like the professional Overwatch players, like the streamers, everybody was like, "Thank God."
hmm Oh god, it was glorious. Once they said that, I'm like, and even for someone like me who doesn't play competitive all that much, when I see them pop up, I'm just like, "Ugh, no. Now, granted, we will get them in unrated still.
And hero
They're
missions.
and yeah, and hero missions. It's just like, all right, we're taking this out. We don't have to see these. I think it's more watching it on a pro level that annoyed me the most because they were just so long and drawn out. Like it's just like, okay, they're gonna push point B on Anubis. If they don't get it the first push, they'll get it the second or third push. And then they'll go into overtime, and then they're gonna just rinse and repeat. And this is just boring.
Yeah, we're gonna play the same map
Yep.
3 times over, and then you're like, okay, so this is how you're supposed to do it. And then when you try to translate that into your own games, of course, none of
Mhm.
that happens. You end up basically hitting your head against a brick wall for 5 straight minutes as you try to capture point B. And then you walk away with no percentage, and then the game just
Yep.
ends up ending in a draw, regardless.
Mhm.
You mean you don't like your Widowmaker running up main on Hanamura every push, every point B push, while the rest of your team just goes whichever direction they want? I mean
No, no.
that's like a core gameplay feature. It's like
Mhm.
ingrained in the game. It says somebody's going to insta lock Widowmaker on Hanamura, never hit a shot because they think they're flower, but they're not, and then they're going to stand in the main while the rest of the team does whatever they want,
Mhm.
and then you're going to be angry, and then when it's the other team's turn they're just gonna walk through you because it's like I said, it's the rule.
Mhm. Yeah, they're just gonna coordinate,
Sounds
just go straight up mid, and yeah, that 33% doesn't take that long.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Nailed it right on the head there, Spider.
Like I said, I hope the maps get repurposed because I do really enjoy the aesthetics of the maps. But in terms of the gameplay mode, like 2CP, coming from Overwatch League Network, 2CP from a professional standpoint hasn't been exciting to me
Mhm.
since stage 4 of season 1 when Dallas Fuel did something different in terms of their defense on Hanamura, and everybody was like, "Wait, you can defend that way?" With Siegel playing like the mid diva while everybody else was just everywhere. But in
If
terms
if you're throwing back to the last time 2CP was interesting and the name Seagull is required
exactly,
for that.
exactly, exactly. That's the point. Like,
uh,
nobody's gonna miss this game mode.
no, fuck 2CP. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just gonna flat out say it. I hate 2CP. Some of the maps are fine. It's just like I never wanna play it in any of my game modes.
Mhm. Well, maybe when you're leveling up your hero in an assault map, maybe that will feel a little bit different. But at least, we'll have more control in that game overall. But
This
anyways,
is true.
so talking about hero missions, obviously this is part of that PvE content that is a main pushing point of Overwatch 2. These are basically like the 4-player maps. This is the co-op stuff that we saw playable at BlizzCon in 2019. And, as Spider had mentioned, like, we saw glimpses of new areas of maps that already exist within the game. Primarily King's Row was the example that they showed. Also, sometimes we're going to be on these payload maps, and the payload is going to take a different direction that, we're not accustomed to seeing in, normal PvP aspects. They also hyped up the weather conditions of the game, which we had already been alluded to prior. They were talking about like the sandstorms on Temple of Anubis. They were also talking about how those weather conditions could also impact sort of player composition. So, like for example, if there's just shitty weather, and visibility is at a low, you could like switch over to Hanzo or Widowmaker to have that sightline advantage because you could see the player outlines at that point. With your Sonic Arrow or Widowmaker's ultimate at that case as well. And I think one of the biggest notes though that they were talking about is just the overall scale of Overwatch 2 because they basically were like, all right, like well with these missions, they threw out the number of hundreds. Now we don't know if that's the end goal, if that's like the pipe dream or what it is, but going back to BlizzCon 2019, they basically showcase like a map that had like 9 to 12 different locations that we were going to visit. And at the time we're like, okay, that's a start, but it didn't really tell us how much of a game there actually was. And when the dev team basically comes out and are like, all right, well, we're looking at 100 plus, then it really starts to sink in like, holy shit, like there's actually going to be a lot more content than what we were initially anticipating on the PvE side of the game. So to have a clear indicator of the direction that they're taking on that front was definitely an eye opener. And I'm really anxious to see the replay value on that end of the hero missions.
Yeah. I'm like, is Spider gonna talk or am I
I
gonna
I
talk?
will, but
All right, you
I
go
no,
first. You go first.
okay. Sorry, I was responding to chat. Um, so yeah, hero missions. Hero missions were like the big point to me to I took away from in this whole thing because like you had mentioned a few times like we didn't really know the scale of Overwatch 2 going into this. Like we knew we'd get a story mode, we knew we'd get some PvP changes, but we didn't know outside of that what they were shooting for. Like we knew hero missions were a thing, but we didn't know like okay, is this going to be like two or three missions that they just change a little thing on, to make them not as repetitive. But to me, this seems like a huge undertaking. Like story mode, from what we got, sounds like it's done. Like they have it mapped out. They just have to code it, put the art assets in. But to me, it sounds like they have it written. They have it ready to go. They may tweak a few things here and there, but hero mission seems to be, to me, what they're taking a bulk of their time on, because they
Mhm.
know like this team is made up of people who've been in Blizzard for a long time, people who've made other games that deal with progression systems, and hero missions are going to be the thing that keeps PVE players engaged. They have to nail it. To me, Edinar might be able to speak to this too. That really reminded me of like strikes from Destiny 2. Like there's a mission that you have on a map, and the map is the same, but little bits and pieces during the map can change, like who you fight, what you're doing, midway through the map. The end goal is always the same, like get to the boss, kill the boss, but midway through the map you may have to do something different, like deliver this or defend this, stuff like that. Whereas to me it seems like that idea like cranked up to like 11, like they're changing a lot more of the dials. So you're going to be on King's Row fighting Null Sector, and you have to defend this, and then capture this, and then gather this kind of thing, and stuff is going to change along the way. And that's really cool to me. They talked about this is going to be how you level your heroes. This is your replayability, and that all was really exciting to me, because I think that's what Overwatch is currently missing. Is unless you're a highly competitive person,
Mhm.
there isn't a reason to come back to Overwatch right now.
No.
Whereas hero missions will continually, especially if they launch with as many as they're shooting for, will continually keep people engaged until they can launch more. Like that's the best thing, is this is, in terms of what they're doing, scalability is huge, and they can scale this out very easily. So I was really excited to hear that, and then at the end of it, we didn't we said it in chat, but we were all kind of like, okay, but what's the end goal? Like, is just leveling your heroes going to be enough for most people? Like, it's going to be enough for some people, but don't get me wrong. Like, there's people like me who are going to be like, I need to max out every character and stuff like this. Like, I've leveled every character in WoW to the max level for most expansions just to have that. But most people aren't, like that. And most people are going to need like a goal or a reward or stuff like that. And he didn't say it in the panel, but he did say it in an interview. He's like, look, our team comes from veterans. We know progression systems, we know reward systems. We are working on it, but we don't have it ready to show right now. So just
Mhm.
trust us. So I am excited for hero missions. I am way more excited for hero missions than I was when they revealed them, because I was kind of like, okay, that's gonna get boring really fast. Whereas now I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah, I think the entirety of Overwatch 2, the success of it, rests solely on hero missions. And whether they actually incorporate replayability. Because that's the big issue. Like you mentioned strikes from Destiny. You could even kind of loosely compare it to dungeons in World of Warcraft. It's just, does it have a payoff and will it bring people back? And that's going to be the biggest thing. And we don't know what the replayability is. We have a small inkling of it, but it it's more like, is the payoff going to be there for us? And if the payoff isn't there, then this whole Overwatch 2 existence can be just thrown out the window. Um because it all rests on replayability of PvE and essentially hero missions. Because I think hero missions is the most replayable out of everything.
Yeah, and
So
they
it will be interesting to see how they draw us in that way.
right. Yeah, I think like if you're like comparing it to the WoW front, it would be more scenario, if anything. But that doesn't mean like we couldn't see them expanding on ideas like pulling from like the Mythic Plus system, where we start to see different affixes for like the null sector
Mm-hmm.
mobs within these hero missions. But I also went
They've
into
already done that, like in the seasonal events. So you're absolutely
right.
right. I didn't even think about that.
Right. So there's a scaling aspect on the difficulty front as well, outside of just the okay, we have a difficulty tab that, here's the easy, normal, hard, and then just going on that front. So there's other ways that they can improve on that front. But I also want to talk about some of the objectives that they were talking about using for the hero missions as a whole. And they were talking about basically having at least half a dozen different objectives or goals that you'd be looking to accomplish in these. One of which that they shown off during the panel was retrieval, where you're basically spread out and you are collecting canisters, and then you return said canisters over to a safe zone. They also had one where you are defending in uplink, and another one that they mentioned was survive the gate hack. And there was also one that was like a deactivation one, kind of like a diffuse mission as well, which we've kind of been accustomed to some of the other FPS titles
You
so
forgot
far.
the most fun one, the Wall of Death. Like that one to me spoke because you just had to run through the mission without getting killed by this slowly contracting wall, which to me speaks battle royale. But you know, I
That does sound oddly familiar.
yeah,
Yeah, it's weird like that.
But I just the one thing that we touched up on, as Spider had mentioned, is just the leveling and progression of the game, and like that's still something that we're kind of bare bones right now. Like we don't know what the rewards are going to be, but we got a clear indicator of what we can kind of expect happens to the character itself when you level up, because we have talents that are more fleshed out compared to the initial
Oh
iteration
God,
that we
yes.
saw in BlizzCon 2019.
crazy.
So to rewind the clock really quick, back at BlizzCon 2019, when they first announced Overwatch 2, they're like, okay, we have hero talents, and basically each hero had 3 tiers. You would select one of the 3 options, and then you would just unlock them over time based on your character level. And all of that stuff was specific to the PvE content. Talents will not affect PvP at all, nor does that seem to be their intention. Now, as they showed off, like we have specializations for every hero. There are 3 different specializations, and each one has that like RPG tree element similar to like what we are accustomed to seeing in WoW. And like each tree basically has like upwards of like 16 talents to upgrade and branch out on. So like, there was one that seemed to be like more of a DPS mercy.
Yeah, Battle
Like
Mercy.
there
I saw that and I'm like,
we didn't get to see enough of them in play though, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint how much of a play style differential on a hero to hero basis this is actually going to involve. But I want to see what sort of variations we see to abilities within the game based off of what spec you were actively playing, and just how the talents are actually going to work out. Like, can you just swap them at will, like at hero select? Like, how is that aspect going to happen? We still have so many questions, but
yes.
to see the talent
Mm.
trees in that current state, it leaves my mouth watering, because I want to see just how much customization is being offered to your hero. And I also want to know, like, how much XP are we going to be gaining, kind of like on a mission to mission basis, depending on, what sort of difficulty we're on, or if it's based off of like a time completion, getting bonus XP or anything like that. Because we haven't really even touched up on like monetization things that they could offer within Overwatch 2, but I would not be surprised if we see like the return of something like XP boosts in regards to like the PvE side of the content.
I mean, it is all the rage right now. Although Ubisoft has gotten in a lot, like taken a lot of flack for that kind of stuff. So we'll see
Mhm.
if the Overwatch team can scoot past that. Based on Jeff Kaplan fighting for the game, I don't know if that's going to be the case because he's going to have to make concessions along the way somehow. So adding microtransactions on the PvE side wouldn't surprise me, but in terms of like the talent progression and stuff, I don't see a reason why they would add a respecking like cost. Like there's
Mhm.
no, like it's not like World of Warcraft where you have a character and that's your identity, and they kind of want to make it a little harder to respec, just in terms of encounter design. Now in terms of this, they did say like before the match starts, you're gonna see like, okay, we're going to Numbani and there is a sandstorm. So you can pick a character and then change the talents. That's the way I interpreted it. Like so you can play around what you're gonna be given. Um, so I don't see like a respec cost being a thing, but in terms of like XP and progression, you're right. There are a lot of questions that we don't have answers for yet. But just looking at that talent tree, I was like, Jeff Kaplan just literally pulled all the old Overwatch guys over, like, hey, how can we make this like the old World of Warcraft guys and be like, how can we make this like WoW Classic? Because I really
Right.
like those talent trees. I didn't like the Mist of Pandaria. You pick one of these three kind of things. And we didn't see a whole lot, but obviously they're doing a lot of fun stuff. Like you guys
Yeah.
mentioned, like the pharmacy minus the Pharah type of thing. We know that Soldier 76 currently has a vigilante tree, and we didn't get to see what the individual talents were. But to me, vigilante says Batman. So what if Soldier gains like a grappling hook and can grapple up and then Batman his way down on people? There's a lot of room for fun in these talent trees. So I'm excited that they
He
went this
kills
route.
he kills someone and screams
Mhm.
Martha.
Yeah,
Um
not Snyder Batman. I'm talking about
I mean,
old
well,
actual
yeah,
old school
I mean,
Batman.
I'll say this, and this is confirmed, is Mercy gets mass res back.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, they did talk about that a lot.
Like they straight up confirmed it, and I'm just like, you know what? In certain instances like this in a dungeon, essentially, I'm all for that.
Well, the bots aren't
Not
gonna
in
yell at you.
not in actual PvP,
Mhm.
but in PvE, a mass res would be pretty good. I'm okay with this. Now, here's the real kicker. Is how bad are the people, the Overwatch fans, gonna bitch and moan to get some of these talents from the PvE on the PvP side?
I hope that they have like an arcade mode where you're like, here's the talent trees. You can pick a you here's 10 points. Go nuts. And then it's just an arcade mode because they already have like
Mhm.
total mayhem and stuff like that. Like there's no reason they couldn't throw an arcade mode in there and say, here's so many points, here's the talent trees. Have fun. Like that's what arcade's for. And I hope they do that because
Like
then
12 hogs, one hole, the worst freaking game mode of all
okay,
time.
I'm not talking about workshop. I'm talking about like legit arcade modes. But like imagine if you get Reinhardt with that 360-degree earth shatter and stuff like that. Like you can have a lot of fun in arcade with this stuff, and the fact that it's there, uh to Edinor's point, means that it's gonna make it into workshop one way or another.
Oh yeah.
Well, you guys failed to mention probably the most hyped one of all was actually unveiled during the IGN interview. And that is with Junkrat. I don't know.
Oh, the
Junkrat is
dual.
able to dual wield grenade launchers.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
I didn't see that.
yes, that was in the IGN interview, and he was just like, I don't know how you can do this without it feeling completely, overpowered or broken, but like, based
I
off of what
mean,
he was
you
saying, the
have
testing seemed to be in a fairly good spot there.
you need to you would have to have sound effects,
My,
and if not, you need to make them yourself. You're like pew pew
Mm.
pew pew.
Yeah, my
pew.
question on that front would be, well, like, how does he place his traps? Like,
I mean, you still have, yeah. It depends how they did it. Like, do
I
you?
love you're just like your reasoning. You're just like, well, yeah, yeah.
he doesn't
Because I
have a
mean,
free hand.
he's got it in his mouth, and he's just like,
Oh,
"Hurrah!" But
Huh.
so he's gonna be
at that point,
lockjawed, is what you're telling me.
Junkrat becomes a better shotgun hero than Reaper. If you think
Mhm.
about it, you just run into anybody and just boom, and then boom. At the current 240 damage, you're just dead. And then if you throw your grenade out of your mouth, that's like what, 360 damage, 300. I don't know the
He
current.
spits it out like Raynor. Yeah, is it Raynor from StarCraft?
Yeah, exactly.
Spits out his cigar.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's just
Tychus.
there's so many questions. Like, does your left click just fire both of them? Do they alternate? Do you have to use left and right click depending on which one you want to
Or
fire?
or in more realistic terms, could one of his grenade launchers also be a trap launcher?
I
And it
like
just
that.
shoots it out of that.
I
That
like
could
the.
also be the case. That's one way
I
to
like
go
that
about
he's
doing
holding
it.
it in his mouth. No, I hope they go the extra mile, and when you want to put the trap down, he literally like puts the gun down and then like pulls the trap off of him and throws it, and then has to pick the gun back up. Like, really make it like completely awkward looking. Like, and he says something really like out of line, like, "I'm doing this with 2 grenade launchers. This is supposed to be fun," and then he like puts the.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know.
it just won't be a case of Reaper just like littering shotguns all over the place.
They could actually just make it so that he can't put traps down. Be
That
like
is also
you
true.
get it'd be like you get 2 grenade launchers with increased capacity,
But no
but
traps.
no traps. So there are, on a serious note, there are gameplay ways around that. But honestly, I don't think they would care at that point. I think they would just write it off like, okay, he just still throws the trap out while you're going commando on him.
Ah.
Nothing like going commando.
Of course. I mean, you can only see from the waist up, right?
Right? Well, yeah, see, yeah. So confirmed. Spider. Oh, well,
As he faces into the abyss.
Spider was going commando. Failed horribly at
I
that.
ruined it for you. Sorry.
Womp
Did.
Unlike my work meetings, I show up to podcasts with pants on.
I haven't
Anyways.
worn spoiler. I haven't worn real pants in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Sweatpants.
Just pandemic
Yep,
things. Yeah.
full on pandemic sweatpants the entire time.
There you go. But anyways, so outside of that, like that was the bulk of the Overwatch 2 news that we got from day one. Really not a whole lot going on in regards to day 2 outside of, and I'm not even going to use the terminology show match because that's definitely not what the Shock versus the World actually was. That was more of a clown fiesta
That was just
than
legit
anything.
the worst.
Like day 2 honestly just felt like filler the entire day on the Overwatch front, but we did get a couple of news bits during Shock versus the World. The first of which was
Who
the
runs the world?
championship skin for the Shocks win this past season, and it is a Roadhog skin called the Midas Roadhog. So basically,
It's so nice.
yeah, I mean, I was definitely wowed by it, and I know Ed and R was as well. Hog's belly displays like that golden San Francisco Shock logo. Really, like the armor is something fit for like a cane essentially, because it's
Yeah.
just wrapped in gold. His head is basically like a little blaze, with like a golden fire as well. And all in all, like looks pretty cool. We don't know when it's coming out, but I'm assuming April would be
Yeah,
the best
they.
guess.
I
I
thought
think.
that's what Zoe said.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they
Was
said launch of Overwatch League 2021,
Okay. Which in that case it would be I want to say it
April
was like
6th.
April 16th, with the
Yeah.
cost of 200 leak tokens. 'Cause that's usually
Mhm.
the price points on that front. But like I think the prior season was the Doomfist skin for the
Right.
Shock. And I know a
Hmm.
lot of us were just kind of like, eh. So like we actually got like a 180 on that front. So how you guys feeling about the Roadhog skin? Is this gonna be a must buy for you?
yes. Like as soon as it popped up on screen, I messaged you. I was like, "Yeah, no, that's a pretty dope ass skit."
Yeah, I mean, anybody who is either A, a fan of Roadhog, or B, a fan of the Shock, or C, a fan of Overwatch League that has the tokens will buy this. And some people will even buy tokens for this one because the skin is phenomenal. Like the effects on the skin are amazing. And like you said, we go back to last year's Doomfist, and it looks okay. I mean, it has its merits, but I think everybody it had the same reaction of okay, that's cool. And if you go back even further, it was kind of the same way for the Winston skin for the London Spitfire. People are like, "Oh, that's neat. He has a propeller," but nobody was like, "Wow, did you see the effect on that Winston?" Like, no, like they definitely went like the extra mile on
Hmm.
this one, which makes me curious. Like, if the Shock win again, are we going to get like a solid gold like Reinhardt that sits on a throne that's carried around by like four other people? Are they going to just keep increasing the quality of the skins till it's ridiculously absurd? But this skin was amazing. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, there goes 200 tokens or
Right?
300 or whatever they're going to charge for it.
Well, I think if they win
Yeah.
again, they're just gonna put Krusty in the game to immortalize his coaching forever.
I have to say something about Krusty here.
Here comes a hot take for you.
Hot take. Okay. So here's the thing.
Mhm.
He was in the Blizzconline day 2 against Lucio Dad.
Mhm.
Okay. Which we all saw.
That was painstaking.
It was horrible. Krusty legit has a flag of his name, like on the wall.
So he's reaching Kanye levels of ego, where he's just sitting there watching old matches, be like, "I'm such a good fucking coach." Like, oh my god, I can't believe I told them to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just like, wait, is that a flag of your own name in the background? Yes, it is, Krusty. Yes, it is.
See, when you
You remember
said
that?
that, I thought you were talking about like the flag in the game.
No, yeah, no, straight up a flag in his room, in the window.
Mhm.
He modded it in there. It was on his Lucio. You missed it.
Uh,
It's
and what's even better is that it's like it was reversed in it, so
mhm,
he has it pointing out to show the world that my name is Krusty.
mhm. People are walking by like,
Be like, oh shit, that's Krusty in there.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure that's how people are. They'll be like, that.
Yep.
Why does that say crusty? Like who?
Yep. I was just
Mhm.
That
saw that. I'm like, you conceited jackass. But I'm like,
that
you know what? You deserve it.
that one guy's like, "Oh my god, Krusty lives there." Like, I can't believe he lives in that building. Like, that's amazing. And everybody else is just like, "Who?" Like,
Como se llamas?
Mhm.
no. Look, Krusty's a great coach, but yeah, maybe bring it down a little bit.
Yeah. You're like, let's tone this shit down a little bit. All
well,
right.
Look,
well,
look.
maybe
Even
the
Bill
shock.
Belichick doesn't have his name
Yeah.
behind him in most of the press conferences, especially after this year.
Maybe the shock losing versus the world will be enough of a damper on him to knock him down a peg or two. But that's besides the point. Outside of
the
that,
most
yeah,
rigged thing
so
of all time.
yeah, and the I mean,
It was.
all of those were cringe to different extents, but we'll move on. Let's talk about the format news that we got today for the Overwatch League, as well as schedule news. All right, so Overwatch League is back for the fourth season, starting on April 16th. And the 2021 season operates around 4 standalone tournaments, starting with the May Melee, which will be followed by the June Joust, Summer Showdown, and the Countdown Cup. So we'll have teams competing in 4 matches for each tournament cycle to qualify for the final tournament, where teams will be playing knockout matches in their regions to advance to the double elimination global bracket. So on the west side, you will have the top 6 teams, and from the east, you have the top 4 playing in the knockout stages of the tournaments. And then after that, you have the top 2 teams from each region competing in the double elimination bracket, with the winner taking home $100,000 in prize pool money, as well as earning additional league points in regards to the postseason qualification. All right, so they already kind of like touched up on that aspect prior when you get to the global matches for the tournament cycle, where teams are flying to Hawaii basically to compete, and then they were talking about pain differential, and the new systems that were put in place to make sure that the teams are as close to matching as humanly possible. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about league format changes as a whole over the years, where we haven't really had the same standpoint through a full season. So like I'm gonna throw this one to Spider first. Like, how are you feeling overall about the decision to move towards that tournament structure for the Overwatch League this season?
I a lot of people were critical of the move to the tournament structure, but I personally didn't mind it. Like, I think it was a natural progression of the way things go. Like, I really liked the stages. Like, I feel like the stages gave like good snapshots of where teams were at a certain point, and then then you would go into the grand finals, and none of that mattered for some reason. But I think it's good from a viewer standpoint because it gives you like starting points. Like, last season obviously was very weird and very different as everything else was. Um, but I think losing the stages overall like hurt the league. Like, it made it hard to watch. Like, nobody's going to jump into the NFL never watching a football game on week 15 and feel like they can enjoy it. Like, and Overwatch as a growing sport, doesn't have the same problems as football does because it's been around for so long, but can have issues like that. Like, you're not going to grow your audience unless they feel like they have a good starting point. Like, it's something comic books do all the time. Like, comic books reset all the time because they want to bring new people in, and I feel like stages and tournament structures is the right way to do that. So when they announced the tournament structure, I was like, okay, this is cool. I think this is a good starting point. But then some of the rules got really convoluted. Like, they started adding points and wins and stuff like that, and you didn't really know, like, unless you were like one of us who talks about it every
One
week.
of us. One of
One,
us.
but talks about it every week, follows every bit in detail, like every post that Super makes on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, unless you were one of those, at the end of the season you were kind of like, okay, why did this team make it into the playoffs and this team didn't? You obviously, the top teams, you didn't have that question, but for the 12th and 13th place teams, you're like, wait, they won a match in a tournament back in June, so they got 4 extra wins, like, stuff like that was a little weird. So in terms of like what they're doing this year with the tournament structure and just like a straight point structure, I think is a good idea. But in terms of like the whole structure, I I'm not against it. Like, I think it's good for the league. I think, like I said, it gives a natural jumping off point.
Yeah, and I think for me, the biggest thing is obviously Activision Blizzard right now is operating two different leagues. You have the Overwatch League, you also have CDL for Call of
Yep.
Duty, which is also completely tournament based, and it's always been the case since its iteration. So I feel like sort of streamlining that sort of format makes sense from a viewer perspective where it allows people to transition to watching other titles and to get hooked into Overwatch or Call of Duty and just have a better understanding of what's at stake on kind of like a week to week basis, because when we were jumping around, the problem that we were starting to see this past season was just the fact that there were a lot of times throughout the season where there were just matches that didn't really hold any sort of weight to them. It just felt like, all right, we're just playing, and really nothing is on the line. Like, it's not going to mean one of us is going to make the playoffs. It's not going to mean that we're eliminated if we lose this match, because at that point, they were already eliminated, or that was a match in itself that we'd already seen like 4 or 5 times already in that season.
Hmm.
So to just be able to provide more of a reason to tune in because of the game and the impact the game can have brings a lot more to the table. And the tournament format is one I really enjoyed, so to see them just saying like, all right, this is our plan, we're outright sticking to this,
Hmm.
and this is the way that things are going to be, is great. But I
Yeah.
I still have a couple of issues with the format, which I'll get into in a minute here, because there's another part of this that is only in effect through half of the tournaments and not the
Oh,
others.
okay. Can I just say before we get on that, because I know what you're going to talk about.
Hmm.
Before we get into that, I will say the thing I forgot to mention is last season when we did the tournament format, it was like there were two leagues running. Like there was the East League and the
Hmm.
West League, and you could literally watch one, the other. You know, that's it. They had no interplay with each other, and obviously, I understand with the pandemic and stuff that was you know to be expected. But I think what they did this time by bringing them together in these tournaments at the end of these 3 or 4 week periods, I think that was the right call. Like I think that was the concession that they needed to make, and they did say that they not in this but in past interviews, John Spector has said that they have tech behind, so everybody's going to be playing on a single ping.
Hmm.
So it may be a little higher than normal, but everybody's going to be on like a level playing field. So I think that's cool. So that was my big gripe
Hmm.
last season. Like, uh, I only caught certain like Korean and Asian matches um, very infrequently. Like with the newborn and stuff, my schedule was all over the place, and then work and stuff. I I didn't have to pay attention to that side of things, and that was sad to me because I really like some of those teams. Like I really like Seoul, I really like Hangzhou, and I had to go back and watch select matches, but at the end of the day, like you said, it didn't really matter to me. Like Seoul playing Hangzhou for the 12th time, okay, like whereas it's going to bring a little more cohesiveness to the whole league. So now you can go on your rant about hero pools.
Yes, go on,
Okay.
Totem.
Well, so okay, there are parts of the format that people are really going to like, and then there are other things that are the red flags. Because when I'm talking about the tournament infrastructure, I want to see that same sort of consistency on a tournament to tournament basis, and not say, all right, here's going to be the rule set for this month. Here's going to be the rule set for this month, and then have it just alternating. Because what they're doing here is they're going to have two tournaments throughout the season that have hero pools in place the way that they were this past season. So, you'll have the one tank, one support, and two DPS heroes out of the pool for that tournament. And then in the other two tournaments, hero pools are not going to be in play. And then, when you get to the playoffs, I'm pretty sure there's no hero pools. I just want to see that streamlined. Like, there's no reason to me why you should be like, hey, just have at it. Like, you should just let your pros play what they want to play. Obviously, like,
Mhm.
the meta is going to be defined at the pro level anyway.
Yep.
So to basically put them in a position where half the time they're going to have to tweak things to play something that is not as optimal or maybe not as enticing from like a player perspective or even as a viewer perspective, in those cases I'm just not drawn into the matches as much as I would be if they were playing on meta heroes. So like that's a disconnect that I still have with the Overwatch League. That's not to say that I'm still not excited for the tournament structure throughout the entirety of the season, because I am. Like, that part I really like. I just want to see the hero pool aspect of the league go into the wayside because it restricts what we're able to see from the pro level. And like I don't find that aspect fascinating at all.
Yeah. I I will 100% agree with you, Totem, that I think the hero pool can probably get thrown by the wayside for the simple fact that when it was implemented, we weren't getting experimental patches and stuff like that every 3-4 weeks. So like you didn't have to worry about one meta lasting half the season. And when it was one meta for half the season, yes, hero pools was needed. It just was because it got boring. But now that you have this, like different patches every 3-4 weeks and stuff like that, I don't think hero pools is as needed. And especially knowing that it's only in 2 of the 4 tournaments, batshit crazy. Uh, like, I'm sorry, that's just stupid.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like hero pools are an idea for a 2018, early 2019 Overwatch. Like it is something that the old developer team could have put in place to the goats problem. That would have been why we needed it. I think in current Overwatch, they're releasing changes and patches so fast that it doesn't matter anymore. Like I don't think you need hero pools, and they specifically say in the article that they're only going to release balance patches in the bye weeks for Overwatch League. Like that is when the balance patches are going to be. So if Overwatch League tournament structure is going to take place over 6 to 7 weeks, that's possibly 2 to 3 balance patches that are going to come along. Um, and then they're going to implement them into Overwatch League. So I don't think hero pools are needed anymore. Like I 100%. God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I 100% agree with Edidar in the fact that this is just like I understand why they did it. Like they're doing it to kind of like sprinkle that little extra spice in there. But I from a competitive standpoint, I think it's stupid. Like I think you're right. I think it's going to muddy the water a lot more. You're going to be like, oh well, Houston Outlaws were garbage without
All the
hero
time.
pools, but now they're
Just
slightly
as Houston Outlaws are garbage all the time.
slightly less garbage with hero pools. Uh, so they actually won a match rather than losing all of them.
Well, see, they were slightly better than garbage, and then they signed Jake,
Yeah,
and then they go slightly below garbage.
uh, I have a hard time talking about Jake because I like Jake as
I
a
love Jake. Like
personality.
meeting Jake, he was one of the nicest people ever and amazing to talk to. Doesn't mean I like him as an actual Overwatch League player.
It's weird to me because you have Dante, which is like considered one of the pinnacle DPS players, and then you have Jake, who is a DPS player.
Right?
Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. But anyways, getting back on track here. Um, Speaking of streamlining the process, and this is what I was really excited to see. Let the start times for the games. You have the West teams always starting at 2 p.m. Central Time. East games always starting at bright and early 3 3 a.m. Central Time. One of the things that I was really having an issue with last season was just the fact that we would have these staggered start times depending on whether it was like an East Coast team on the NA side or a West Coast team. Where, some days you would just be starting like 2 hours later than the other. So just from a viewer perspective, this is actually going to be pretty big. And as we already kind of figured, matches are still Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on a week-to-week basis on that front. So I'm happy to see that. Like it just makes things easier for you. There's not gonna be the question of, oh, is the Overwatch League on? Because I can't tell you how many times this past season there was a
Yeah.
discussion like, oh shit, like there's games on right now. I had no idea because they tuned in the day prior and the game started at 4 p.m. and then all of a sudden you have a game on at noon, and then they're just like, well, what the fuck?
Look, Overwatch League should not take the contenders' ideas. Contenders should take Overwatch League ideas, and the mixed schedule was
Mhm.
awful. As somebody whose sleep schedule already got destroyed, like adding that on top of it, I was like, cool. I guess I'll look on their YouTube later and see if there were any matches.
Oh, it's rough. So outside of that, they did go over the league point system that they have in place. Really, I don't think this is really like worth deep diving into. Obviously, with the tournament structure, teams that are in the top three are going to receive bonus points added to their total, and the points overall at the end of the season will determine the seed-in as well as qualification for the season playoffs. So they also went into like the prize pool overall. So the champions will take home $1.5 million USD, with a total prize pool for the playoffs at $3.35 million. So quite a bit on the line in that front. So all in all, like we got the schedule for the Overwatch League that was posted earlier this afternoon. I have not like deep dove into that or like checked out the entirety of like like a tournament phase or anything. What I do know is the opening match is actually the Battle of Texas. You have the Houston Outlaws going up against the Dallas Fuel in a match which in the past has always been about which team is trying to throw more.
Mm-hmm.
So Spider, I want to know where your head is at going into this season with these teams, because in the past there has been that cycle of misery surrounding Dallas, which to
Mm,
an extent has also impacted the Houston Outlaws. Like, do you feel this season is going to bring a different perspective when it comes to this particular match as a whole, or are you feeling it's unfortunately going to be more the same for these two teams?
I didn't have high hopes until they signed Jake on the Outlaws, and then the outlook's looking a little better for Dallas. So as a whole, I think the clown fiesta that is the battle for Texas will continue. I think it's a tradition at this point. Like
Mhm.
it may get a little more technical and things may get a little cleaner, but at the end of the day, it's going to be who throws harder, while both teams just compete in the Throw Olympics. It's I I'm excited to see how these teams do because both of these teams have done a lot of restructuring in the offseason. Uh, Specifically Dallas. Like
Yeah.
Dallas is, I could talk for an hour about how I feel like Dallas does, and I can have wildly different opinions throughout that hour and still be completely wrong. Like nobody knows what they're like. We've seen hints here and there, like we got to see like the little show matches, but nobody's going to show their hand during the show matches, and nobody.
No.
Yeah, and even at that point, Dallas had only been together as a team for a couple of weeks. Um, so as a Fuel fan, I hope they do well. Like, I'm not gonna say, I hope, they shit the bed, because nobody's gonna feel that way about the team that they actively root for. And
Mhm.
especially since I don't do a podcast about it, I don't have to be as impartial anymore. So I honestly hope, Houston comes out and they get dumpstered. Like, I hope this isn't even close, because then at least at that point I can go on Twitter and say, like, good, the clown fiesta is over and you guys can suck a
Yeah. This
you-
matchup to me is like if you've ever watched like a boxing, UFC, wrestling pay-per-view, like this is the shit matchup that they just throw on and hope people watch for the main event.
Mhm.
this is Jake Paul versus someone
Yes,
precluding Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson type of thing.
exactly. Because you have Dallas versus Houston, and then you're just like, oh, okay, we got those two clown fucking fiesta teams.
Here you go. I got the perfect analogy. This is Jake Paul versus XQC, because both have huge followings that are idiots. Dallas Fuel fan, remember, versus, going on to the Shock versus like Shanghai. Like, that's
Yeah.
exactly what this is.
Yeah,
You're
because
exactly right.
the second matchup of the Shock versus the revamped Gladiators
Mhm.
is, and not even revamped, just stronger Gladiators
Yeah,
team.
and not to mention it's
It-
the only California Cup in
yeah,
existence at this point.
yeah, it's just like that is the marquee matchup of the first week
Mhm.
All right,
is Shock versus Gladiators. So
can I
it's like,
tell you can I tell you a secret? I had
yeah,
a Valiant shirt on before the podcast started, and
And
then I
and you changed
changed
it.
because I was so embarrassed for the Valiant.
Mhm.
So I actually at some point contemplated putting on my Washington jersey that I wore yesterday that the baby spit up on, even with the spit up on over the Valiant shirt. Like, that's
Mhm.
how embarrassing it is to be a Valiant
you
fan,
like
right?
baby spit jersey or Valiant
You mean
jersey.
kind of like how the organization basically spat on, the staff as well as the players?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am glad I'm not doing the podcast regularly, because I don't know if I could have held my tongue in the way that they treated some of those players, because I really like a lot of the Valiant players. I may not have liked the whole team like as they played together, from a competitive level, but personality wise, I really liked a lot of the players, and what they did to them was dirty.
Mhm.
So I can hold my tongue now because I've had time to cool down. But yeah, like I said, I have the old green Valiant shirt, so that's how long ago I bought it. Just so people know, I haven't bought any recent Valiant stuff. But yeah, I had to change out of that because the fact that we're not going to get any more California showdowns between the LA teams is sad to me, because regardless of if you've actually liked the teams, that was kind of like a standout moment. It's like the Battle of Texas, like it's one of those marquee moments, regardless of how you played out. It's just fun to say and talk about. So yeah, now that we got Shock versus Gladiators, I guess that's the battle for California.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Absolutely.
excited.
So looking at some of the other matches, I know Seoul opened up their season against the Philadelphia Fusion. Obviously, one of the other big stories from the offseason was a couple of these NA teams moving over to compete in APAC. And Spider, as someone who has followed Overwatch esports, I know the track record with Philadelphia and the Fusion organization as a whole when it comes to competition in Korea, always blowing up in their damn faces. so,
Yeah,
so it's
I
just
hope this
like,
works better for them. I hope this works out better for them than it did for the university team, and then
mhm,
obviously flying over there for the grand finals. You know, look, I said it when I was on the podcast, and I stand by it. Like, the league doesn't benefit from teams that are dog shit. Like, the league benefits from teams that are competitive. Like, obviously, there's going to be top teams, and there's going to be middle teams, and there's going to be teams that don't do well. But as a whole, the league does better if the parity between the top and the bottom is a little closer.
mhm,
So if Fusion fly over there and do absolutely horse shit in terms of results, like, that's not going to benefit anybody. Like, I love to dump on Philly teams, But at the end of the day, it's not good news for the fans. It's not good news for the league. Like I hope it goes better for them, but we'll see. I mean, this is a whole new season, whole new meta, whole new everything. Like, it's fun to have conjecture about, oh, I think, Phillies pick up here, or, I think they'll do really good if the meta stays like this, but we won't know until honestly halfway through the season whether the teams are meshing or anything like that. But
Mhm.
as a whole, yeah, I absolutely think maybe they were a bit ambitious with flying over to Korea. Like if I was Phillies management, I'd be like, can you send one of the other teams over to Korea? Because I don't know if we're gonna do that well. Because every time we go there, our players just forget how to hold the keyboard and mouse.
I mean, Fusion Uni bombed when they rebranded to T1. They bombed. Playoffs didn't go according to plan, and now we had the Fusion competed in APAC throughout the entirety of the season. So I don't know. Maybe the fourth time is going to be the charm. Maybe management just didn't pay attention to what happened in the other three iterations. All I know is if it blows up in their face again, I'm going to get a good chuckle out of it, and it's just going to be like one of those "I told you so" moments. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But it could be a rough ride ahead for the Philadelphia Fusion competing in APAC, to say the least. But that was basically all the information we got over the course of the weekend. So obviously the majority of it revolving around Overwatch 2. Uh, Still no clear timeline in regards to when the game is actually going to release. But as we said, like we are expecting another update in April, according to the IGN interview with our dev and
Mhm.
savior, Papa Jeffrey Kep praise him.
Praise him.
So I really hope that that's an indicator of them just going to be more vocal throughout the process after they went dark for a while, which they basically said outright was going to be the case. But 15 months is a long, long time of no communication. So if we're getting little snippets every, 2 months or so, I'm sure that can go a long way in regards to the community, just to be more in the know and just more upfront about where the progress is in regards to a release slate. So we'll see how patient the community can be. But I know a lot of people are kind of conflicted right now. They're kind of in between stuff, and they're just looking for content to play. So hopefully it's not going to be more of the same throughout the year.
Boy, it's a
Hopefully.
good thing Valheim just came out to give all these Overwatch streamers something to do.
That is true.
I said it yesterday during the panel, but I think the fact that they went dark for so long, they said they were going to, but I think it was too long. Like I think
Hmm.
after like you know 6 to 8 months, they could have popped on and been like, "Here's some stuff we're working on," and just done a little bit of communication because like I said to our group yesterday, I think gamers at this point are, look, we're still ravenous idiots, and we will say dumb things when you say stuff that makes sense normal people. But as a whole, if you say, look, this is what we're trying out, this is what we're working on, these are the ideas we are currently playing with, and we don't know if they're going to make it in there. If you come back 2 months later and say, no, we didn't really like that, like we didn't really like the talent trees, or we didn't really like Reinhardt having two fire strikes, most I'd say 99% of people would be like, okay, yeah, if they don't think it works, at least they're talking to us about it. Like I
Hmm.
think that's the better approach than going completely dark. So I hope they hold up on their promise of coming, every couple months and being like, oh, here's a shot of, Rome, and we initially wanted Rome to be a 2CP, but then we scrapped 2CP, so now we're turning it into an escort map, stuff like that. Like it doesn't take much to make the community uh, at least content. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say happy, because the Overwatch community is rarely happy.
Yeah,
Um,
we're never happy.
but at least content enough to be like, okay, and it gives people like you guys on Heroes Never Die. It gives Overwatch YouTubers like Stylosa and stuff something to talk about other than here's the experimental card and here's stuff like that. Like it generates buzz on a level, like on a natural level. So I hope they continue that way forward. But yeah, that was a long 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Any other thoughts, Edinar, before we close out the panel?
Yeah, I guess not really. I mean, we've kind of said it all.
Mhm.
We got a lot of information slash non-information.
It
Like we
was
got they're just like, we're gonna sprinkle some tidbits, but we're not gonna give you any real information.
it was basically at its core more fleshed out information on the systems that are put in place
Mhm.
without seeing the full iteration. Basically, it's what it was in
We
a nutshell.
we did find out Sojourn has a railgun,
That is
which looks
true.
Yes.
completely awesome. We did see her ability icons, which one of them looks like a movement ability. So it seems like she's going to be a highly mobile, at least right now in their current builds, a highly mobile, uh, aim-based hero,
Mhm.
similar to Ash.
And Jeff Kaplan did say that there are a crazy amount of Easter eggs in the videos.
Mhm.
So it's only going to take people a matter of time for like in like 4 days we're going to have like Easter eggs from the Overwatch 2 behind the scenes panel
Here's
videos.
here's evil Maui in the background of one of
Yeah,
these shots
yeah,
pushing
exactly.
payload.
Like we
Stuff.
already found out that Winston at his control panel has a peanut butter button.
There you go. So. And I think as stuff goes forward, I think I've covered Overwatch for over 4 years now. We've come a long way since the Sombra ARG thing.
Mhm.
So I think at least in terms of teasers, they kind of know what they're doing at this point. Even if the teasers are non-teasers, stuff like if you remember the Sigma leaks where he leaked on the scoreboard super early, like they know what they're doing at this point. So I think Ednar was right. God, I've said that too much.
Oh,
Yeah, you've
jeez.
said that more often than you probably care to do.
It's making me sick. But I think at this point, I think you are right. I think over the next couple of days, like Stylosa and like all these Overwatch content creators are going to pick apart that whole 40-minute panel, and we're going to learn a lot more than we thought we did.
Yep.
Uh, at least that's my hope.
All right. So with that being said, we're definitely a little over, but that's all right. We're gonna wrap up the show for tonight. So if you guys want to support the podcast network that we are all a part of, consider pledging to our Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. And you can find more information on that at patreon.com/OWL network. And you too can join the of our Master and Above patrons, Daniel, Owl, and Kesha, in helping our network grow. And of course, there's a number of ways how you can contact the show. I think it's probably easier just to say, all right, our website is at owrecall.com. That's where all of our podcast information is, as well as all the episodes. We do export our stuff over to YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We have our community Discord at discord.me/OWLN show, as well as stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show, where we do stream a couple of nights a week. Currently, right now, we do Overwatch League Network on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, as well as our variety Overwatch show hosted by myself and Edinar. That is on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And, if you're looking for something a little bit different, if you are a Hearthstone fan, Edinar and I also do Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, which is on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Time over at twitch.tv/Tavern Tales HS. Now, of course, we do our Fantasy Overwatch League podcast as well. We'll probably know more about when that's coming back in a couple of weeks
Soonish.
when we talk to Ramses, because obviously the league comes back in April. So we'll be in touch with some of the fantasy platform creators, and we'll work out interviews on that front, see what all is new on that end for them specifically, as well as hopefully having more details about league picks or whatever the hell they're doing for pick'ems on the Overwatch League website, which we still don't have details on, but that's besides the point. But anyways, I do want to thank both Edinar and Spider for joining me here tonight to discuss everything that happened over the course of this weekend on Blizzconline. Spider, I know it's been a while since we've had you on in podcast form. Always good to sit down and chat Overwatch. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always happy to shoot the shit with you guys. I pick on Edinar a lot because he deserves it.
That is true.
I will say though that you did agree with me
I did.
Thrice.
numerous times.
At least 3
Look,
times.
Just because you're right a couple of times doesn't mean that I don't get to pick on you.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm always happy to lend an opinion. I obviously have a few, so thanks for having me.
And if you are looking to contact our host, of course, you can do so. You can reach me over on Twitter at Totally Drunk. Spider, where can our listeners contact you?
You can find me at SpiderGD on Twitter.
Absolutely. And Edinar, how about you?
You can reach me on Twitter at Twitch. At Ednar83 on Twitter and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. Thank you again for joining us for our Blizzconline recap show. We'll be releasing this on our podcast feeds for Overwatch League Network and Heroes Never Die, and we'll see you guys on our next shows. You take care and have a good night.